Hello, and welcome to our podcast, God's Plan. My name is Lucas, and this is my partner, Noah.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening in. Today, we're going to be talking about the Vatican II Council, and specifically the Nostra Aetate document produced at the council.
That's right. Let's dive right in and get to business.
Let's do it. First, let's talk about what was going on around the world in the time leading up to the council.
So, in 1965, when this council was first called, there were a lot of really important historical events ongoing, and some of those that were going on, particularly in America, were, the Civil Rights Movement and the Vietnam War.
Yep. And then outside of America, the Cold War was in full swing, and there was a global struggle for human rights and the dignity of every human life.
Yeah, and I think that's really important for us to remember, in that context, that was really the defining character of that time, was ensuring the dignity of every human person. And with that in mind, the newly appointed Pope, John the 23rd, really wanted to do something about this that he thought was so important, the dignity of human life. And so he sought out to address these pressing issues with the Vatican II Council.
Exactly. So he called the Vatican II Council, which brought together bishops from around the world to discuss how the church should respond to all the problems in the modern war, like, Cold War, Vietnam War, everything we said earlier.
Yeah. And what exactly is one of these ecumenical councils?
So a council like this is where all the bishops from around the world come together to discuss the problems revolving around the church.
Yeah. And so out of this Vatican II Council, one of the most groundbreaking and formative documents that they produced at this council was Nostra Aetate, which in Latin means in our time.
Yeah. This document focused specifically on the relationship between the Catholic Church and non-Christian religions such as Judaism and Islam, which was super important because of the past conflicts between them.
Yeah, for sure. And just like you were saying, before Vatican II, the church, the Catholic Church, often had a very distant and sometimes even a hostile relationship with other religions, especially Judaism. There were thoughts going around of anti-Semitism and blaming Jews for killing Jesus and those sorts of ideas before the council clarified that. And then, of course, we can see that clearly through the Crusades, where Christians and Muslims fought over the Holy Land.
Yeah. This Nostra Aetate document marked a major shift, and it taught that the church should respect the truth and holiness found in other religions, which is super important because it helped them all to realize that the basis of these other religions, they're more similar than they realized, and they shouldn't have all these conflicts.
Yeah, for sure. And it particularly mentioned religions like Islam and Judaism, which Christianity had a relationship before or knowledge of before, but it just clarified those relationships. And then it also mentioned certain religions like Hinduism and Buddhism, which really Christians had really no relationship with before this, and so it really established that relationship.
One of the most historically significant parts in this document was its statement on Judaism.
And this document rejected the idea that all Jews, either then or now, were responsible for the death of Jesus, which was really responsible for a lot of anti-Semitism before this Vatican II Council.
Yeah. That was huge because the belief had contributed to centuries of anti-Semitism in Christian history, and it exemplified ressourcement, which helped reconnect Christianity with its biblical roots in Judaism and the scripture. And
ressourcement is one of the terms that were very popular at this council, and it just emphasized, like Noah said, going back to the scriptural roots of the church. So this document represented a major change in church teaching and helped improve Catholic to Jewish relationships worldwide, and is an example of aggiornamento, which is how Vatican II updated the church.
And that was another huge point of the Vatican II Council, was updating the church to modernize it. And the council also encouraged dialogue instead of division. And, the purpose of this was because the church believed greater understanding between faiths could reduce prejudice, encourage peace, and recognize shared truths among all people, which would take away conflicts.
For sure. And, rather than seeing other religions only as opponents, which was historically the view in a lot of ways, the Catholic Church now and Christianity as a whole really now emphasize mutual understanding and cooperation between other religions, despite how different they may seem.
Yeah. And it was really important that there wasn't just a mutual respect between these religions, but that there was actually a dialogue so that they could, like I said, reduce the prejudice and actually have peace and have real relationships instead of just respecting them from where they are.
For sure.
And now let's take a short break for our sponsor, Fish Pro Shops. Need fishing gear, hunting supplies, outdoor stuff that makes you look way more experienced than you are?
Then get to Fish Pro Shops, where the fish fear you before you even hit the water.
We've got rods, reels, tackle, camo, kayaks, and enough gear to make your truck smell like bait for weeks.
Whether you're chasing bass, deer, or just trying to impress your friends,
Fish Pro Shops has everything for you.
Fish Pro Shops. Catch more, miss less. And with that, us having discussed the context of the Vatican II Council, let's jump into how this relates to today.
So, how exactly does it connect to today?
Well, in our modern world today, religious diversity is more visible than ever. People of many faiths live, work, and study together every day.
Because of that, the teachings of Nostra Aetate remain extremely relevant.
Certainly. This document's call for dialogue and mutual respect between religions and people who may have some disagreements about their belief systems, but can still work to cooperate, really continues to shape how Catholics interact with people of other faiths, not just dialogue between priests or religious people, but also the laity, and that emphasizes participation through the laity, which the council really cared about.
Yeah, that was another one of those big 3 words, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Moving into some modern examples, one of these is that recent popes have actively built relationships with leaders of other religions, which, do you know any examples of that?
Yeah, for example, Pope Francis has met with Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, and even Orthodox leaders to promote peace and cooperation. And this, especially with Orthodox leaders, really marked a big change. Since the schism, there had really been limited cooperation between the two churches.
Exactly. One specific example of this was in 2019, Pope Francis, he signed the document on human fraternity with a leading Muslim imam to encourage interfaith peace, which, that's just perfectly exemplifying what the Nostra Aetate stands for.
For sure.
These interreligion relationships.
For sure. And this kind of outreach directly reflects the spirit of Nostra Aetate to promote cooperation between different religions.
Exactly. Now, branching out beyond that, let's get into why students should care about this. Even outside the church, the document matters because it promotes a broader principle, which is respecting people of other beliefs.
And, in a world often divided by religion, politics, or culture, this message is still incredibly important, because like people will say, history will repeat itself, right? Like we were talking about the context of this council in the 60s, especially with things like the civil rights movement, there was really a lot of people didn't think that people who weren't like them had dignity. And that's really just a wrong way of thinking that the church alleviated and really taught that everyone has dignity because they're made in the image and likeness of God, not because they have some other characteristic about them that makes them like me.
Exactly. And, it's super important for avoiding conflicts like those in the past because, with just like a mutual respect of someone, there's still tension there. Mm-hmm. But you need like relationships and like peace.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to be best friends with someone, but you need to have a respect with this person so that you can have dialogue and so that you can grow as a person too. It's not always just about other people. It's about you becoming a better person yourself as well.
Exactly. So the main takeaway for students like us is that it reminds us that understanding others does not weaken our own beliefs. It strengthens our humanity.
Certainly. And overall, Nostra Aetate was one of the most transformative documents of Vatican II because of its, revolutionary teaching about the church's relationship with other people, but even more than that, how the laity can fulfill the church's mission in that.
Exactly. It completely changed how the Catholic Church viewed other religions, and it helped open the door for modern interfaith dialogue.
Yeah, and more than 60 years later, its message still shapes the church and her members and continues to influence the modern world.
Exactly. All right. Thank you everyone for listening to God's Plan. We hope this gave you a better understanding of Vatican II and its lasting impact of Nostra Aetate.
See you next time.